in person. So I'm honored that you're here today. And so please help me welcome none other than my new friend, Miss Sheryll E. Roberts. Woo! Let me adjust her mic really quickly. I want her to speak really loudly because she has a very important story to tell. Welcome to the show, Sheryll. Welcome to Real Talk. I was introduced to you by a very dear friend of mine, CC or Sansaria. So we call. I was like, when I saw her today, I was like, I don't remember calling you Sansaria, but she said I did. I remember CC more than anything, but nevertheless, I just love how people are finding their ways to me. So I thank Cece, who's in the studio with you, to show her support. Yes. We appreciate that because it's so important to have support, isn't it? So how are you doing today, Sheryll?
I'm doing well. I am well. I'm tired, but I am well.
Listen, I just heard that Sheryll just got off of a 12-hour shift. So if she nods a little, I'm just going to kind of poke her. But she says as long as she's sitting upright, she's fine.
Upright, I'm good.
So Sheryll, thank you so much for sharing your story. She has this awesome book, y'all. And I'm telling you, let me just tell you something. I can't tell you how many times I broke down while reading this book. And I'm going to try not to break down now because I'm getting emotional just thinking about, and just chills all over my body just thinking about it. But she memorialized her story in this beautiful book. And it's entitled From Victim to Vessel, Pushing Through the Pain to Walk in Purpose. And then she has the most beautiful picture on the back. Look, I'm a girl for a tutu. I am, and I just love it. And it's just like, to me, in this beautiful picture, I just see freedom. Absolutely. And releasing. In this picture, I see that you are living in a better place, and I appreciate that. So anyway, let's get started. And before I get started with the interview, I just wanted to read, if you don't mind, the introduction, just a paragraph of your introduction, because I thought it was so important. And it reads, whenever most people think of their childhood, they are immediately able to recall fond memories of games outside and houses filled with love, along with the occasional hurt. But this is not true for all children, and it was especially not true for me. The damage of the abuse that I suffered during my childhood robbed me of those sweet memories and stripped me of my voice as well. My hurts were huge, and they were all I could remember. When I read this, I thought to myself, good God Almighty, what a burden to have to bear, because you're absolutely right. When most of us go back into our childhood, we think of wonderful, fond memories and the occasional hurt. If you fall or if you can't, you can't get the outfit that you want to get, but you suffered a greater loss of your childhood, pretty much. From the age of 4 to 15, you suffered at the hands of your cousin and a brother. Oh my God. So, when did you feel free enough to tell your story of sexual abuse and why?
It was when it was after the point where I had begun to heal myself. And when people heard my story, it was like, yeah, I've been through that too. Yeah. And so I saw the need. And so God gave me the strength, because it's very hard to open up about that painful issue, but God gave me the strength. He said, it's your time. People need to hear your story. So the more I talked about it, the easier it got. So it's been an amazing journey.
Oh my God, yeah. I see it in the book. And something you just said that just warms my heart. You said a need.
Yes.
And there is a need.
A great need.
There is a great need, because in the end of the book, and we're going to talk briefly about that, towards the end of the book, you open up and allow your niece to share her story of abuse. Yes. So there is a need. And I really believe with all of my heart, the more we share our struggles and our triumphs, the more people will be healed as well. If we walk around acting like everything is okay, you know what? Other people will suffer as well. So thank you so very much for being here. Thank you so much for allowing God to place on your heart the strength and courage to share this tough story. Now let's get into it. What is your earliest memory of abuse?
4 years old.
4.
Jesus. It was, we were in a bed with my cousins and my brother, and you know, back then it was okay for everybody to sleep in one bed, so you know, it was just normal.
Yeah, normal.
And so one night, tried to go to sleep, and I felt a hand, and I'm like, okay. And even then, at 4 years old, I knew something was wrong. I knew it wasn't right. But he started fondling me, and I felt like, okay, this is wrong, but I couldn't tell anybody. I was too afraid, because my mom had already been through some stuff. That's why we were at my cousin's house, so I didn't want to put more on her. So I just didn't say anything. It happened twice in one night.
Twice in one night?
And then the next night.
Jesus.
And then we left. That's when we moved here to Houston. We were packing up. And then, 4 years later, it happened again.
4 years later, it happened again. Let me ask you this. Do you think it's a natural instinct for the individuals who are being abused to be afraid? Because you know, even when I was reading your niece's story, she was talking about being afraid. And I've heard so many times that the victim is afraid. That's the first thing that comes to mind, as opposed to I'm angry and I want to tell the world. Why do you think that?
Because of what the predators are telling you and making you feel. You know, the lies. You know, I'm gonna hurt you. I'm gonna hurt your family. No one will believe you. You know, things like that. And so it shuts you up, and it makes you clam up, like, okay. And then you start thinking, okay, did I do something to make them do this to me? Knowingly, I mean, you're 4 years old, so you can't, you know, but that's the mindset that comes on with all of the hurt and the abuse.
The manipulation of the abuser abusing the victim mentally as well as physically.
Absolutely.
So that's really important to know. So with that was your cousin, 4 years old. Did you tell anybody? Did you ever tell anybody that?
I didn't tell anyone until I was grown.
Wow, so you carried that in your head.
I suffered in silence.
Wow.
All those years.
Suffered in silence, and so many people are suffering in silence. And something, as I was reading the book and noticed that you were in the middle in the bed. On one side was your cousin, and on the other side was your brother.
This was another brother, though.
Okay, got it. Because I was thinking to myself, you know, was there some collusion there?
No.
You know, so it was another brother.
Yeah. I had 4 brothers, so.
Okay, so 4 brothers. So let's get into. So the next abuser, 5 years later.
4 years.
4 years later.
I was 8.
8 was your brother.
My brother.
Your brother. Let's talk briefly about that.
Pretty much he molested and raped me until I was 15.
Oh my God.
It continued. And, I mean, just the fear of not knowing what to do again.
Did it take you back to being 4?
Absolutely.
Immediately, did it take you back to being 4? And the same thing happened was with the fear. With the fear.
You black out. And it was like, you go into this place, like, I don't want to feel this. So it's, you know, you kind of, you're not there. But yet, you feel it, but it's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to scream. If I could scream, if they would hear me. So you just
internalize it, huh? What type of manipulation did he use to keep you, if he did, to keep you from telling? Because I want people to hear this, because I know it's somebody else out there. This is their story, or it will be their story, or it's their child's story, or somebody they know's story. So what type of manipulation did your brother use toward you? Because you were a little bit old, you were older, 4 years older. What's that, 8 years old? My God. What types of things did he say?
You know, tell me, you know, no one's going to believe you if you tell anybody, I'm gonna hurt you. You know, mom's not gonna believe you. You know, stuff like that. So it was, and he was much bigger than me. So not only was he physically stronger, he was also mentally
He
stronger.
was also mentally stronger. And how often did it happen? That you can think back.
More than it needs to be.
Yeah, because one time is too many.
Yeah.
One time is too
Yeah.
many.
My mom worked a lot, so
Oh, she did.
we were home all the time.
So you say there was you and you had 4 brothers?
Well, they were all older.
They were all older, but who was in the home at that time?
Me and my twin.
You have a twin?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I have a twin too.
Oh,
Okay,
man.
a twin. Hey, Mona. A twin. What? Twin sister. Twin sister. Now you have a twin sister. During that process, did it ever occur to you? Because that's what comes to my mind. Did it ever occur to you that he could have been doing it to her as well?
It's possible.
Did it ever occur to you to even inquire?
Mm-mm. I was too afraid to say anything.
Too afraid. And he knew it.
Because I was the timid one. I was the real shy. My sister was very outgoing. And so me, you know, I was always the quiet, withdrawn, timid, afraid of everything. So, you know, they knew they could take advantage of me, I guess you could say.
Wow, that's sad. Now looking back, do you think, or did you ever see any signs that somebody else in the family knew about this abuse? Because you didn't give off any signs, or
No. Because I was always quiet, so for me to be withdrawn, that wasn't new. So they really couldn't tell. But if they did, they never said anything.
They never said anything. Wow, wow. This question: how does one live for years with this type of abuse? 7 years. 7 years. I mean, I can't even imagine going to school carrying this burden, or just trying to live an everyday life as an 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old, living with this heavy burden. How do you get through that?
Well, I started clowning around a lot because I didn't
Acting
want people,
out?
Yeah, I didn't want people to see the hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So I started being the class clown.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, that was my mask.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody could see what I was really feeling, trying to make everybody laugh. And so that's pretty much how I got through a lot of stuff, just being funny.
Just, it never occurred to you to tell, did you ever come close to telling anybody, like in school or?
Mm-mm.
No, nobody.
Mm-mm.
What about church? Did you attend church?
I did.
And did you ever think about,
No.
did you ever get angry with God?
I did. I was very angry
Why?
because I felt like you could have done something. You could have stopped him, and you allowed it to happen.
Wow. It amazes me, it does, how the abuser or the abused, the victim, somehow always thinks it's their fault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Their fault. Is that because of the sexual? Is that because of the abuser and how he or she manipulates
Yes, absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
into thinking
Absolutely.
that? So now you're carrying around the physical abuse
Mm-hmm.
and then the mental
Mental.
abuse,
Yeah.
and nobody picked up on it.
If they did, they never said anything. But I mean, I learned later on, you know, it happened more in my family than not. So I guess it was just
Later on, what happened? The sexual abuse?
I found out other family members earlier had been sexually abused
Right.
after I began to tell my story. And then
Begin to tell your story. And that's why it's so important to tell the story. Let me ask you this, just since you mentioned that. When you decided to tell your story, were you surprised by how people responded?
I was. I was.
You know, and what did you think? How did you think they would respond? Did you think they would push you away? Did you think they didn't? You did.
Yes. I thought they would look at me crazy. They would think, you know, oh, she's retarded. You know, nothing happened to her, or they wouldn't believe me. It was a whole bunch of stuff, but when I told the first person, because I was like ready to tell, but still afraid to tell.
Right.
And once I told her, the reaction was so different. It was like she loved on me and she supported me, and I was like shocked.
Right.
Like I wasn't expecting it, because I felt like people would just look at me like, oh girl. But then when I told my family, it was a whole different reaction.
And how old? Because the sexual abuse stopped happening at 15. How much later after that did you actually give breath to this horrific story?
I was 28.
28, 13 years later, you're holding on to this. And then the first person that you decide to share with is not your family member, it's actually a friend. And it was just something about her that, and I remember reading in the book that you just kind of blurted it out. And I think you said that your friend didn't seem to pick up on it. And you were glad about that. But wow, so it was just, you just felt like it was time.
Yeah, it was, because I had actually blocked it out.
Really?
For a few years. And then 28 came, and the memories little by little started coming back.
Really?
And
how
then,
soon after 15 did you start blocking it out? Because I've heard that before.
I was probably 19.
Really? So from 15 to 19, it was ever present in your head, playing over and over. And
the first time I tried to commit suicide was 18.
That's right. You said commit suicide. 18. And what happened at that point? Take us back to that moment. Where were you mentally that you said life just isn't worth living?
I was just tired.
And it was tied directly to the abuse? Was it because of the abuse, you think?
Yes. And then it was just the mental torment that I was having.
Mental torment.
And the self-esteem and the confidence. And I had, I was in a pageant that my senior year, and I didn't place or anything, and that, I think,
triggered it.
Yeah. And that's when I tried to commit suicide the first time.
My God. So you attempted suicide how many times?
Oh my God.
Wow, Jesus.
About 4 or 5.
4 or 5. And during those 4 or 5 times, I know this may sound like a crazy question, but did you really want to die? Or were you crying out for attention? Because 4 or 5 is like, the 4th one ought to be it. I'm just keeping it real.
It was like, it seemed like I couldn't even kill myself right. That's how crazy it was.
Because you were really trying.
I was really trying. I was taking pills. I was a cutter. And so, cut my wrist, and I'm like, okay, God, what are you doing? I mean, why am I here? Because there were many days I would wake up and I'm like, God, why did you wake me up? Because I knew I had to face all of that. I just didn't
want to deal with it. So from 15 to 19, you said 19 is when you actually
just blocked it out.
Blocked it out. Where was your brother doing this? The one who abused you? Okay, you block out the memories, but it's your brother. And I'm sure you had family gatherings,
Yeah.
What, and you were probably, because you didn't leave home until when?
My senior, after I graduated, I left.
You left here. But before you answer that question, what do you think made him stop?
He left to go to the Army.
He left. He left. How often would he come back? In between the time that you blocked it out?
Probably Christmas. But I didn't see him that often.
But you didn't see him that often. But when you did, what did you think? Did you think I'm going to kill him? Did you think he's no good? Did you think I hope he doesn't do it?
No, I was actually very afraid. When I would go around him, it was like he could control my emotions.
Really? Do you think he would have tried to do it again? Had you maybe, it sounds like maybe you were a little bit stronger or resistant? Or he was just done with it, you think?
I think he was just done with it. I think at that time, because he had gotten married or whatever. So, But it was like a control thing, and he knew if he saw me, you know, at that time, he could control how I felt. I would just clam up, and I would never really stay long at the family function because I was just too uncomfortable.
So he never tried to talk to you or do it again after that? Wow. Why? Why do you think?
I don't know.
No clue, huh?
I don't know.
Now you say you attempted suicide 4 times. I would think if I had a child who had attempted suicide 4 times and was a cutter and all of this, that there was something deeply embedded inside of her that she was trying to get out. Did anybody at that time say, why is this girl trying to kill herself 4 times and cutting herself? Did anybody ever think, your mom, your siblings?
You know, she would ask me because, you know, the second time, she was like, you know, is there something going on? But even then, I couldn't tell her.
Couldn't tell her.
I was just, fear had me just bound.
Just bound. Boy, I tell you, fear is something else.
It's a booger. And
Fear
it was
is
like,
something else.
I wanted to, and it was like right there, but my voice was just gone.
Your voice was gone. So other than the suicide, and you blocked it out, so from 19 to 28, when you actually shared it, what was your life like? I mean, what, because you say it was like, what, was it as if you were going through life numb?
Pretty much.
Numb.
Just existing, not
Just
living.
existing.
Just, you know, I work, had a few relationships, but, you know, sabotaged all of them.
Because of what you had gone
I
through.
couldn't trust anybody. Abandonment issues, rejection issues, self-esteem issues.
Just the whole gamut, everything.
Yeah, just messed up mentally, just damaged.
Throughout that time, 19 through 28, did you want to be healed, or did you ever think you could get over it or be healed from it?
Never really even thought about it. I just kind of, you know, drank my way through life.
So you started drinking, and that was your numbing. That was your numbing medication, if you will, that numbed the pain. But there was something also as well, and I think that was God and prayer, because you say that Psalms 27 was one of your favorite scriptures during the years of abuse. Why? Why, Sheryll?
Scripture says, the Lord is my light, my salvation, whom shall I fear? And during that time I went through a lot of fear. And that scripture, even doing the abuse, kept me kind of sane. It kept me from going crazy.
Right. Because you knew enough to call on Jesus. You knew enough about grace.
Yes.
And His mercy.
Yes. I grew up in church. I knew His word. And so, you know, I just began to apply it. And, you know, it helped me to get through a lot of those tough moments.
Really? Wow. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I tell people all the time, I can't imagine. First of all, I can't imagine enduring what you had to endure. I've endured some abuse, you know, but you know, abuse is abuse, but I think there are varying levels, you know, and yours was extreme, and I can't imagine going through something like that or anything like that and not having God, because there are times in our life that we just can't rely on man.
Absolutely not.
There are some things we will never tell man. There are some things in our head we just believe man can't. And the truth of the matter is he can't get us through. Man can't get us through. So when I read in your book that you relied on God, I knew He was your saving grace.
Absolutely.
And I knew out of all of the times you attempted to commit suicide, that it was Him who kept you. And I think of that all the time because He had a greater purpose for your life. He had a greater purpose for your life. In the book, you talk about insecurities and pain. Just briefly tell me, what did the insecurities and how did the insecurities and the pain manifest itself? Did it through promiscuity, allowing other men to abuse you? What did it look like?
Pretty much all of that.
All of that.
Yeah, slept around, kind of wanting to I guess hurt the man.
Mm-hmm.
So I, had this control thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then pushed him away. But yet, it was like I was trying to fill a void.
Okay.
And it was like I really didn't want you, but because I needed, I guess, to feel love,
Right.
I kept you around but if you get too close,
Right.
well, no, it's time to go. But then I'd go to somebody else.
Right.
And it was like a cycle.
Right.
And I did that until I got healed.
Until you got healed. That's why I say so important. Wounded people wound others.
Absolutely.
Wounded people wound others. Y'all better get that. Wounded people wound others. And because of your woundedness and your inability at the time to do anything about it or to choose to do anything about it, what you sought to do and did was wound others. And that's so important that we must understand that if we don't check our brokenness, we break others. So again, you talked about wanting to give up, and I was talking about suicide ever cross your mind, which it did. It did. Did you ever think prior to the first time that you attempted suicide that you could ever do it? Did you ever think,
No.
Because I know as to me and my family, and I don't know if it's something with African Americans, it's suicide, I was taught, that's immediate damnation. That's immediate. You understand what I'm saying? So you steer clear of that. And but for you, so suicide prior to that, you would have been the first to say, not me.
Right.
I'm not doing this. And then you say you started cutting yourself. I know when I was an assistant principal, there were times I ran into, I just didn't know anything about that until I was in education and saw students who would, I didn't see them actually in the act, but the results of that. What made you do that? I mean, and how did it help you? How does cutting help you, one?
At the time, it kind of just gives you a release from the pain that you're feeling in your head, and you see like the blood, it kind of takes your attention away for just a moment. But then once, all that clears up, the memories and the mental state is still, beating you up.
It's still beating you up.
So it's just, something to kind of release for a period of time. And then it's back to the torment.
How did you know about cutting? Is it because it's just something that came up? Because sometimes I think to myself, how do people, I know, maybe in school you talk about it, but how old were you when you started the cutting?
I think I was 15.
Oh, okay.
15.
Okay. So you probably had heard about that in school and stuff like that, and you used just a razor or something? And how often did you do it?
Probably every other day.
And what, did you wear long sleeves? And
and then my legs.
Oh, you did it in more than just, because what I remember is, wow. And it was therapeutic for you, in a way.
Yeah.
That's something.
That's the word for it.
Therapeutic, yeah. And then not only that, again, earlier you said you turned to alcohol. What was your drink of choice?
Anything.
And you would drink to the point of just passing out. Again, trying to find any and every way to numb the pain. And in the process of you trying to numb this pain, nobody said, girl, what you doing? What are you trying to hide? What are you trying to numb? Because you didn't come from that type of background.
Right.
Promiscuity and alcohol and...
But see, a lot of people didn't know that.
But your family.
At that time, after I left, I hardly ever saw my family.
Really?
It was on occasion. But I didn't see them that much. So it was behind closed doors I did the drinking.
Wow. Behind closed doors. So you were a closet drinker, just trying to numb the pain. We're gonna fast forward to 28 years of age. What do you mean when you say moving from pain to torment? You say that in your book.
When I began to have the flashbacks, it was like I was reliving everything all over again. And so I started drinking even more, and the suicidal attempts. Just pretty
Things
much
got out of control.
Yeah, a downhill
A
spiral.
downward spiral. Bless your heart. I can't even imagine that. This wonderful book. This wonderful, wonderful book. At times it was hard for me to read because you were just so clear and poignant about what you had to say. You didn't mix words. You didn't mix words. I mean, you were a straight shooter in this book, and I love that. I mean, in my own way, I could feel your pain. You know, I'm not trying to be insensitive and say fully your pain,
Right.
but I felt that you were hurt. I felt that you were a victim in here. I also loved your poetry. I love the poetry. When I would get to it, the first one I came across was Midnight Cry. Why the poetry? I know why, but let's tell those who are listening why.
Writing for me was therapeutic, and poetry, music, period, the arts, was something that I was really interested in.
Right.
And at that time, I would write poetry.
Yeah.
And that was one of the ways I would release some of the pain
Right.
of what I couldn't say out loud.
Yeah.
I wrote it on paper.
You wrote it on paper, so that was your outlet.
Mhm.
And we all have to find an outlet.
Absolutely.
Would you mind if I share this
Sure.
really quickly, y'all? And y'all really need to get the book, because I'm telling you, what we're doing here today is we're just scraping the surface of this young lady's story, and what a powerful testimony. And I honor you that you were able to put it in a book. But let me just share, this is just one of the beautiful poems that she has in the book, and it's entitled Midnight Cry. And it reads, "The night falls and the day comes to an end. I settle into sleep and the dreams began. Fear fills my heart. Terror is all I see. Thoughts of harm, things I can do to me. I wake up in a sweat, breathing uncontrollably. I cry out for help. Seems no one hears me. I see the things that hurt me, memories that had me trapped for years. Solitude seems to be the perfect way out, but that's the least of my fears." Then she goes on to write, "I feel dirty and unworthy of anyone's love. I can't seem to get it right. I have no more strength and no more energy to fight. I hate to close my eyes because I see hurt and pain. A knife in my hand, a lifeless body is all that remains. I am so afraid of what can happen. I just don't want to die. I just want to die. Lord, please come to my rescue in the midst of my midnight cry." Sheryll Roberts, 32801. What a powerful poem. What a powerful poem. When I've read this, when I read it then, I got chills. Reading it now, I get chills. But something I want to ask you, a knife in my hand, a lifeless body is all that remains. What do you mean by that? What did you mean by that?
Suicide.
That was suicide for you. I was thinking to myself, a knife for him, which shouldn't be, violence begets violence. So we don't want to talk about violence.
Well, there was a time now.
There was a time, yeah. Did you ever think about hurting him?
Absolutely. Yes. During my healing process, and I was going to counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you're talking about painful things, stuff come up.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets to be a point where you get angry and the rage. And I went home after counseling, got a knife, and I was driving to his house. And my intent was to go and kill him.
Wow. And what happened? Just grace?
Yes.
Grace.
My friend, she kept calling me, but I didn't answer. And then as soon as I got in front of his house, she called again, and I said, "Okay, let me go ahead and answer."
Mm-hmm.
And when I answered, she said, "Whatever you're about to do, don't do it."
Wow.
And I knew that's God speaking and for me to get it right. Because if I would have gone through and killed him, I would have been in jail.
Right.
So again, God blocked it. Even in my messed up place, God keeps me.
That's all. He keeps. Repeat that. Even in our messed up.
Even in my messed up place, God's hand is on me.
Woo, and He was.
Yes.
And then, so you did receive counseling.
I did.
How long? How many years, or how long, and how helpful?
When I first started, I was, because my friend suggested that I go.
Okay.
And, in black families, we
got it.
Like, black people go to Galilee.
Yeah, we don't know nothing about that.
But then, she was like, just go and just see.
Right.
And I went first to just kind of appease her. But then, when I continued to go and start opening up, it was a help. So
it was helpful. Right.
And so, the more I talked about it, the more of a release it was.
Yeah, the more you talked about it. And then how did you get to the point that I'm going to memorialize this in writing? How did you get to that point to say, I want this to be put in a book form so that I can share it with the world?
It really wasn't a thought at first. But God said, it's time for you to write your story.
Wow.
And I'm like, because I had like reservations about my family, because I didn't want to put stuff, out there. But God said it's not about them. It's not even about you.
Right.
It's about the people that needs to hear your story. It needs to be known.
Amen.
So.
And you were obedient.
I was.
And hence the creation of this wonderful book, From Victim to Vessel, Pushing Through the Pain to Walk in My Purpose. You just mentioned family again. And I just want you to share briefly this, that when you finally told your mother what was going on, she looked at you and said, it was so long ago, forget about it.
Yes.
It was so long ago, forget about it. I can't even imagine anybody going to their mother or any parent and telling them something like what you've told them, for them only to say to forget about it. What in the world did that make you feel like?
I think that hurt more than the abuse.
Hurt more than the abuse?
Because that was the one person that I needed support from and the love from, and I didn't get it. And so that was very hurtful.
Very hurtful. Very hurtful. And just a sidebar, how important is it? Because how important is it for parents to be there for their children?
Oh.
And to create an atmosphere of support where they can tell you? Because abusers are so dadgum manipulative. Yeah. It's so important.
That's why I try
to
educate parents, talk to your children, have that relationship where they can come. And tell you if something's happening, and believe it.
And believe them.
Support them.
And support them.
Ignore it and, sweep it under the rug like so many
parents do. And what you said too is if they come to you, but let me just tell you this really quickly. My son, when he was little, he's 39 now. When he was little and I was a single parent and he was on this little league football team, and the coach would bring him home after the meetings. And one particular day, he didn't bring him home directly after the meeting. He took him to the Astrodome. It was such a long time ago, the Astrodome. And I was frantically worried. We didn't have cell phones like we do now. It was only for the rich people back then. People who really could afford it. I couldn't. And I'll never forget, Sheryll, when my baby walked in, I don't know, he must have been maybe 7 or 8. And I looked at the coach and I said, where have you been? And he said, oh, I took him to a game and stuff. But let me tell you something. I was very protective when it came to my baby. And I hadn't endured anything. But I looked at him and I said, did he mess with you? Did he touch you? And my son said no. And I asked him a million questions. But you know what? That was the end of that relationship. And we have to be cognizant of that. Children may not come and tell you. And I said all of that to say we as parents must be vigilant and ask our children. Because these predators are out there and they want to manipulate our little children.
Absolutely.
4 years old. you have a story to tell. That is ridiculous. And that's why I have you on the show. I just had to share that because I know it's happening and it's going to continue to happen.
Yes.
But as parents, we are advocates for our children.
Absolutely.
And we need to be cognizant of that. And I'm so glad. That's why I wanted you here.
Yeah.
And that's why I love your book. And that's why I want you to continue to tell your story. Because again, you told your mother. And the first thing she said, it was so long ago, forget about it. That saddens me. And I just don't want anybody else to have to go through what you've gone through. And we need to be, as parents and grandparents, and you know, with all this sex stuff on the internet and stuff, it's happening even more so now.
Yeah,
but don't get me, that's another story for later.
Yeah.
But in the book, I'm sorry, I just started to preach, but I'm really serious about this.
Oh,
it
no.
just angers me.
Yes,
you know,
I'm with you.
You know what I'm
with you.
saying? In the book, you talk about false guilt. Talk briefly about that. What do you mean by false guilt?
False guilt is when you feel like you had something to do with it. And you start blaming yourself.
And so many of the abuse does that. They do that, don't they? They blame themselves instead of the rotten egg that abused them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Even more the reason why you have to tell your story. I tell people all the time, all of us has a story to tell.
Absolutely.
Some of us wants to keep it, let me tell you, some of us want to keep it buried deep in our heart. I know right now there are people probably listening or who will watch this, who have endured some abuse, but too ashamed, and you know what, that's them. I can't tell them what to do with their story.
Right.
They're too embarrassed, too hurt because they're living another life. But you know what? Until you uproot that, until you truly face that,
You have to face it to
what?
fix it.
Oh, I love that. Repeat that again.
You have to face it to fix it.
You have to face it to fix it, and it's so important. So I'm so glad because, like I said, everybody has a story to tell, and I'm so glad that you are willing to shout yours from the mountaintop.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I love that you're shouting it by being here today. You're shouting it by telling us in the story. Now let's really briefly talk about the setting yourself free. And to me, that is by in the book you say forgiveness. I love this. Forgiveness, the most liberating yet toughest pill to swallow. Talk about that.
You know, when you've been through something that horrific, it's hard to forgive that person.
Gosh, yes.
And I knew, because I'm human, and so it's like I wasn't trying to forgive them. I
Didn't plan on it.
No. But God said, I forgive you on a daily basis, but you can't forgive the brother.
God.
And I was like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's a good one, Lord. That's a good one. You got me on that one. But I knew that I needed to be free because it, like I told you before, it was a matter of life and death. And I knew if I did not forgive, I would be dead.
Wow.
And so I began to pray for a desire to forgive.
Oh my God.
And I really began to seek the face of God because I really wanted it. And so I'm not going to say it happened
overnight
like that.
It
took me a while, but once it did.
What did it feel like?
Felt like an elephant had lifted up off my chest. I could finally breathe.
Wow.
And it was like I saw life differently. I saw myself differently. I began to love me. Because there were times where I hated my very existence. So for me to forgive, it was like freedom. Like, and I'm telling you, whom the sun sets free,
It's free indeed.
I'm a living witness. It's free indeed. Because now I have no pain of it. I can talk about it freely without it, you know, making me uncomfortable.
Right.
And so I know that, you know, when God steps in and does a thing, he does it well.
He does it well.
And I'm living life so good.
That's wonderful. What would you say to somebody really briefly who's dealing with unforgiveness, be it for sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, any type of them feeling as if they've been done wrong, what would you say to them? How important is it to forgive?
Forgiveness is very important. That person or that thing, it's no longer. Yeah. But you have to live. You have to be free of whatever it is.
Right.
So let it go.
Let it go.
It may be hard, but once you get tired of a thing, you're going to do something about it.
Right.
And so, seek God.
Seek God.
Get in His Word.
And get in His Word. And I tell people all the time that carrying around unforgiveness is like is likened to being hooked to a ball and chain that you're carrying, a heavy ball and chain that you are carrying, wishing that somebody else is carrying. Absolutely. And I tell people all the time, forgiveness is freeing. It's freeing. Too often people think if they forgive the person who did them wrong or did something hurtful to them, they think they're letting them off the hook. But that really isn't it. It's about you. If you continue to think that forgiveness is about the other person, you'll forever be in bondage.
Absolutely.
You'll forever be in bondage. And I'm so glad that you got that. And as a result of that, the wonderful book came out of that. And then something else, Life of Hope After Abuse. Tell us about that.
The vision. He gave me that name during my healing process. I didn't know exactly what he wanted me to do with it, but it's an organization. We raise awareness for child sexual abuse, sexual assault, and I go out and speak. And I'm like, me speaking, Lord, that's not me. You sure you're talking to me? And it was like, yes. Use your voice.
Use your voice.
You have your voice back. Now go use it.
Use your voice.
And so we go out, do rallies, and go out and educate, give them resources, prevention tips, and just being a resource for them.
A resource for them, which is so important, which truly, as you were speaking, truly defines going from victim to vessel.
Absolutely.
A vessel of support, a vessel of love, a vessel of grace. I'm sure out there you've heard a lot of things that leads you to believe and know that you have a purpose to be here.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you've heard some stories where had I not been out here, maybe this individual would not have been able to share their story. So I'm so glad that you did. Also in your book, towards the end of your book, you share your niece's Tacho Tyler's story, which is
that's my heart.
Which is a story as well. Y'all have to really get this book. I'm telling you, this interview, it's just a snippet. It is just a snippet of what this beautiful woman has gone through, and then she selflessly allows her niece to share her story towards the end of the book, which is just wonderful.
And that's healing for her as well.
And that's healing for her as well, to see this, to know that. And I believe also it's freeing.
Absolutely.
It's freeing, and really quickly, I love this picture.
Thank you.
What will you tell us about this picture? Who is this woman on this picture? Who is this beautiful woman? I love the tutu. I love it. I love the blue little ribbon here from victim to vessel. I love the jewelry and everything.
That's the free me.
Oh my God. That's what I thought when I saw this. This is the free you. No longer being a victim. No longer being a victim. And I to your niece, to you, I'm just so glad that you're no longer a victim.
Amen.
Just like I started off in the beginning by saying that forgiving is not about forgetting. It's really about letting go of the hurt. I know you and your niece and so many others will never forget what happened to you. Never, and nor should you.
No.
Nor should you, but you've learned to turn the pain into purpose.
Absolutely.
And I love that. So with that being said, what is next for Sheryll Roberts? Where do you see yourself? What's next for you?
Well, I just wrote a song.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Woohoo! What's the title of the song, and when will we ever hear it?
It's I Am Hope.
Mm.
And it'll be released April 6th.
April 6th. Wow. And is it a result of what you've gone through?
Yes.
And just wanting to be that, to be hopeful and an inspiration.
Absolutely.
And your organization, Life of Hope After Abuse, how can people get more information about that?
They can go to my Facebook page, Sheryll Roberts, or Life of Hope After Abuse Foundation has a page on there as well. And then my Instagram is Sheryll Roberts, or I Am Not Ashamed Movement.
Oh, okay. Well, what I need for you to do as soon as you get a chance today is to share all that information with me, and I will in turn pass it on to everybody, because I really truly believe that if this is your story, it's somebody else's story.
Absolutely.
You know, and somebody else is enduring. That's why, to those who are listening, please share this. It's so important.
Please share it.
You know, I tell y'all all the time that ordinary people have extraordinary stories, and you know, she's here to share her story with the hope of healing others. You know, and that's what I love. When we share our stories, we tend to heal others, because people know instantly, I'm not alone.
Right.
Just imagine if somebody would have shared with you and you were going through, you know, what they were going through, then you could have connected. Sometimes we connect, you know, in others' tribulations to get to our true purpose. And that's so important. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I love that.
So
you can use it. I'm gonna be. That's fine. That's fine. You know, sometimes that's the way. Your tribulation, me connecting with you in your tribulation, lets me know and gives me the strength to move towards my true purpose. That's really important. My mama used to tell us that, you know, a bum in a ditch can teach you something, and Mama used to say that. You know, she wasn't trying to be negative about the person, but she was letting us know that anybody can teach you something. And that's why I share my story. That's why I come here every morning and provide a platform for individuals like you to tell your story. So, Sheryll Roberts, I love you dearly. I do. I've never met your niece, Tacho, but I love her, and thank you so much for sharing your story. To those of you who are listening today, if you have a story, if you have an extraordinary story, and I know that you do, I would love for you to be a guest on Real Talk, because again, I provide a platform here for ordinary people to share extraordinary stories, and sometimes freeing can only come by telling your story. So that's really important. Again, thank you so much for being my guest. May God forever shower you, with His immeasurable love and grace. Thank you to all who have listened today. Sheila, we've had so many listening. Let me just say really quickly, Sheila, Dr. Sylvia Cole, Cynthia, Vanessa, Wytress Mitchell, Santeria, CC Elizabeth, thank you so much. We love you so much. Thank you, y'all, for tuning in. There's no us without you. But I will continue doing this as long as KCOH will allow me to. Shout out to Jerry P. Beasley. She is an awesome individual with an awesome heart for God. And I appreciate her love and support. Nevertheless, may God keep and bless you. Have a wonderful week. If you or someone you know has an interesting story, like I always say, to share and would like to be a guest on the show, please contact me via Messenger or on Facebook under my stage name, Carla J Motivates. I promise you, I want to hear your story. If it even means me coming to you, I'll bring the cameras to you, because I truly believe that everybody has a story to tell. And if you're ready to tell it, I'm ready to show it. Lastly, if you would like for me to be a guest or host on at your next event, please contact me via Carla J Motivates on any social media outlet or via my website, Carla J Motivates. And until next time, remember to be someone's beautiful bright light in darkness. God bless you, and thank you. But I've never had the pleasure to meet her in person, so I'm honored that you are here today. And so please help me welcome none other than my new friend, Miss Sheryll E. Roberts. Woo! And let me adjust her mic really quickly. I want her to speak really loudly. because she has a very important story to tell. Welcome to the show, Sheryll. Welcome to Real Talk. I was introduced to you by a very dear friend of mine, CC or Sansaria. So I was like, when I saw her today, I was like, I don't remember calling you Sansaria, but she said I did. I remember CC more than anything, but nevertheless, I just love how people are finding their ways to me. So I thank Cece, who's in the studio with you, to show her support. Yes. We appreciate that because it's so important to have support, isn't it? So how are you doing today, Sheryll?
I'm doing well. I'm well. I'm tired, but I am well.
Listen, I just heard that Sheryll just got off of a 12-hour shift. So if she nods a little, I'm just going to kind of poke her. But she says as long as she's sitting upright, she's fine.
Upright, I'm good.
So Sheryll, thank you so much for sharing your story. She has this